Hello, Pistons fans. David Mayo back again with another video answer for your Ask David segment for this Tuesday. Get the question this week from Jim, who says, should the Pistons be looking for a center? I like Andre Drummond, but I don't think he really is the center you build a team around. Sure, he can jump and grab rebounds, but I would much rather see a center that can protect the rim, be a force, pay attention around him on the court, and score some points. Too many times I see Drummond standing around totally lost and watching guys go flying past him to the rim. Way too many times. Sometimes he's not even in the game while on defense. I've seen him looking toward the rafters, daydreaming. His focus on the game is somewhere in outer space. He doesn't have a heart, i.e. no hard fouls to give other players a second thought about a foul when they fly by. Thank you, Jim. 35-year fan, you went through some lean years at the end of the Silverdome years, or beginning of the Silverdome years there, my man. Everyone feels your pain on this question. Believe me, it goes to the core of something I've always wondered about Andre Drummond vis-a-vis his long-term ceiling, which is, can you be a great center without being a great rim protector? Because he certainly is not. I'll start by taking exception to just a couple of points in your question. Hard fouls today in the NBA just don't get you very far. We were raised in an era when hard drivers in the NBA who continued to hurt teams via dribble penetration found themselves on their head and shoulders at some point, particularly in a playoff series, to deter the action that you're describing. That just that doesn't fly anymore. And offensively, Drummond has improved every year, other than his field goal percentage, because he's been used as more of a focal point of the offense since his rookie season. His field goal percentage has been in decline, but his scoring has improved. His per 36 raw numbers, average numbers, per 48 numbers, however you want to measure it. He's a better offensive player now than he has been at any point in his career. He has not developed a game away from the basket, and I don't know that that's going to happen for him. But he's a guy who gets his points by going to the rim and finding them on offensive rebounds. Best offensive rebounder in the game. That's where he gets his offense. Free throw percentage has a little homeostasis to it, kind of some up and down. The thermometer settled at 35.5%. which is not a good temperature last year. So obviously a lot to worry about with Drummond as to his long-term future. But the bigger concern than his free throw shooting is his defense. When they made the decision to go away from Greg Monroe, obviously they asked themselves, who's the better defender, Andre Drummond or Greg Monroe? And the answer is Andre Drummond, because of his athleticism and his ability to make up for errors with his just unbelievable leaping acumen. His quickness, it's just almost unrivaled for a guy of his size in the NBA. And yet, if you ask yourself the same question, who's a better positional defender, Greg Monroe or Andre Drummond, the answer is Greg Monroe, which is kind of sad because he's an offensive-minded player who's slow of foot, plays below the rim. If Andre Drummond ever picked up the NBA defensive game the way Monroe did, he'd be a superstar. Monroe didn't have the athleticism to do anything about it. Obviously, the Pistons made the right decision in going with Drummond over Monroe. But with this kind of athlete, this kind of an exceptional rebounder with a trait that's so definable and so marketable, the one thing he can't do is the one thing he has to be able to do. And we had people, in our forums last year asking for Drummond to be traded before the trade deadline in February of 2016, which is ignorant. It's ignorance is not stupidity. Ignorance is not knowing. Stupidity is knowing and ignoring what you know. It's ignorance of the NBA business to think that you would even consider trading Andre Drummond when he was making $3.2 million last year, rather than signing him to a maximum contract this summer, which will start at $21 million, roughly, depending where the salary cap falls, for 2016-17. A pretty big note. But if you trade him as a $3.2 million player and you have to get essentially dollar for dollar value, you're going to be getting back $3.2 million essentially in value. Whereas if you trade him at any point after signing him to a max contract, you get a $20 million plus contract value in return. Which would you rather have? Even if you're in the trade Drummond camp, which would you ever have? Would you rather have? Would you rather have A, $21 million plus in return, or B, $3.2 million in return? If you answered B, you just crossed from ignorance to stupidity. There is absolutely no way they were going to trade Andre Drummond at any point prior to getting him under a maximum contract, period. And that's still the plan. Are they wedded to him long term? We'll see. They can't renege on the deal that they made with Drummond to delay his rookie contract extension last summer. That's an essential first thing to know. Drummond was good to the franchise when he allowed them to delay his new contract until this summer, when he could have forced their hand last summer, gotten exactly the same deal. It wouldn't have cost the Pistons one dime more. And it doesn't cost Drummond. He's not sacrificing one penny by waiting until this summer. But with the salary cap machinations being what they are, by waiting until after all other free agency business is done this summer to re-sign their own free agent Drummond, the Pistons will be able to spend about another $12.7 million this summer in free agency that they would not have had if Drummond had forced their hand on the contract last year. He played good with them. They got to play well with him in reverse. People are watching this. Agents are watching it. Players are watching it. Potential future free agents are watching it. You don't renege on that kind of deal when a guy sacrificed financial security for the good of the franchise. Now, what could happen this summer? He could test the waters as a restricted free agent, which would be kind of silly because the Pistons are going to match any offer anyway. The other thing he could do, he could exercise the nuclear option like Monroe did and play for a $4.4 million qualifying offer this year. He won't do it. He would lose way more money than Monroe lost by pulling the nuclear option to get out of here in summer of 2015. He would lose about $17 million in first-year salary that even with the salary cap exploding again in the summer of 2017 after a potential lockout, he would not be able to have made that money up. Even if he signed a short-term deal, he'd not be able to make that money up if he had 5 years starting with the 2017-2018 season under the new cap, when you factor in especially all the interest that he would lose on the original money that he would make in 2016-17. There's just no financial reason for him not to re-up with the Pistons. There's no financial reason for the Pistons not to re-sign Drummond, not to give him a max contract. He could go looking for greener pastures, but the reality is he probably won't go anywhere where he's the centerpiece of the franchise, the focal point of the franchise, the cock of the walk like he is in Detroit. And he won't get any more money anywhere else than he can from the Pistons. It makes every bit of sense from a business perspective, regardless which side you fall on Drummond as long-term center. That doesn't mean that the Pistons won't pursue a center in the interim. I mean, perhaps even as soon as the June 23rd draft. But I would argue that they are no more settled at any of the other positions. Point guard Reggie Jackson with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at shooting guard, with Marcus Morris and Stanley Johnson at small forward, with Tobias Harris at power forward. They aren't any more set in any of those positions as far as a secure, long-time starting piece, building block foundation piece than they are with Drummond at center. The idea always has been to max Andre Drummond. The idea continues to be to max Andre Drummond. That doesn't mean you don't keep your options open for the future if he doesn't get better as a rim protector in particular. Tune back in next week. Thanks for being here this week for another round of Ask David on next Tuesday.